everything from X-Men to DMZ to Conan to The Massive, and now he's going to write Star Wars. Probably you've all heard every imaginable rumor about how we're going to reboot continuity and run roughshod over continuity and destroy Star Wars. So
How many of you think I'm going to destroy Star Wars?
You gonna kill Chewie again?
Earlier this
There you
year.
go. I'm fine with it. Anything else?
Well, good. So I'm happy no one actually thinks that's what's happening here. I feel like even if I were inclined, there's like an army of people waiting for that would stop me. He'd be first. So.
maybe not. She would.
Yes. Okay. There you go. I think it was you that probably said that I wasn't allowed to blow up the Millennium Falcon. Yeah. That was like a possible idea. I put it to a pitch. See, it's not gonna. All right, how do we start?
Well, Brian,
Okay.
so you're writing Star Wars.
Yes, I am.
When you're first approaching the idea of writing these classic characters who've had 30 plus years of continuity piled on top of it, how do you reach down and figure out what's going to be yours about these characters, how you're going to present them in a way that seems new or exciting?
Right. Well, I think what's working in my favor is that I mean I've seen all the films and I've read a fair number of novels, but I'm very far from like having the base of knowledge that Randy has or a lot of other people do. So I think that just like as a default state, I'm approaching it from some sort of like an outsider point of view. And I sort of told myself at the beginning when I was asked to pitch, is that I'm not going to attempt to pitch anything that's not well within my comfort zone. And if the requirements of the job were other than that, then I just wasn't gonna do it. I've taken jobs before where it was something I didn't really know a lot about, and I had to do a lot of research, and the work suffered for it, and I didn't have any fun. And I feel like, and the readers suffer for it too. So I definitely wasn't gonna do that. So what I pitched was what I felt like I could best deliver on, and obviously I'm happy it all worked out. And as far as like making it my own, I mean, I feel like, all you can really do is like write the kind of book you want to write, like the kind of Star Wars comic that I would want to read, and hope everybody else sees something in it too. So that's basically my like simple approach to it, and it's really the point of that is really just facilitating everything that at the end of the day the book is as good as it can be.
So what is it that you've grabbed onto to?
I feel like what I like to write about as a general type of theme is I always like to write characters that are sort of in a point of transition and they're going through like a really hard time. I always like to put characters through a really hard time. It's not just me. This is like a very common thing. And I sort of felt like this series picks up pretty much immediately or very, very soon after the destruction of the first Death Star, and doesn't yet reach Hoth. So it's kind of in that zone, and that's something that I obviously wasn't in the films. The extreme, the fallout from that, like on an emotional level, like everybody lost like a lot of people. it was like so many people died in that. Like the Alliance was down to like its fleet was down to like a few ships, and and Luke especially was like, I mean, I'm sure he hadn't even had a chance to process, the fact that he like left his home and his aunt and uncle died and everything. So I really find a lot of great story material in that sort of like emotional turmoil here. So that's the basis here. The plot kind of is built on top of that. Broadly speaking, it's about the rebels looking for like a home base, sort of figuring out like how they're going to keep. I mean, even though they scored this great victory, they're very much like kind of on their last legs as far as having sustained such losses. So they kind of have to build back, and then in another way, the Empire kind of has to build itself back from losing the Death Star.
Okay, I don't want to ask you to give anything away, but you'd also talked about Leia and some of the touchstones of her character, specifically her loss. And
right. I mean, her loss is I mean, you can't even really put it into words. I mean, what it actually means, and what it must mean to her. I mean, she's sort of had like really everything that is her has sort of like been taken away, and then on top of that, she has this burden of responsibility as being some sort of a figurehead or some sort of a symbol of the Alliance. And what is she? She's like 20 years old.
19, I think.
Yeah. So I mean, like that's insane. It's like actually, I always found it amazing. When I was really thinking about this, that she's even like getting up out of bed in the morning. So that's definitely part of the story too. Is we kind of see her have to be a pro during the day and not lose it, and then sort of like deal with all this loss when she can find the time. And I'm putting her in an X-wing too, which is like the first thing I'm. I think that there was some note. I don't know if it came from you or from Jennifer, but that was about she's like too often just shown sitting in like meetings, boardrooms. And if you watch that first film, or I should say my first film, the 1977 film, I mean, we never see her as a pilot, but she's like certainly capable. She's running around like a gun. She knows kind of how to handle herself. So it didn't seem like a stretch to me, and we definitely see a very sort of like active, sort of military-minded Leia in this book. It's certainly on par with Luke and Wedge and everybody else.
On that point, I remember seeing the comment on some message board someplace where somebody was outraged that Leia was flying an X-wing.
When should be flying the more girl-friendly line.
But when did she learn to fly? And I was thinking, well, everybody in Star Wars knows how to fly. I mean, it's first thing they teach you in space school, right? So, I think there's a lot of stuff that Brian's touching on, or elements he's bringing into it that weren't in the movie, and because they weren't in the movie, a lot of writers over the past 30 years just didn't do anything with it. We never saw Leia fly a spaceship in the movies, so we won't ever show her flying a spaceship in any of the novels or any of the comics or any of the comic strips, or on and on and on, everything that there's ever been. But it's that I appreciate the fact that he's thinking like, oh, how would this really be? Because of course she can fly. I mean, Luke had never flown a fighter craft before he got into the X-Wing, and wasn't a problem for him.
I just think it never occurred to me that she couldn't. I don't know if that's like a factor of because this is the first time I'm like approaching this material, and I haven't like been sort of like living in this continuity and being too like aware of the rules. I don't know. It just seemed it's definitely something that I would want to see as a reader. So it seemed like a no-brainer to me.
You talked about you said something that of course was immediately taken the wrong way. But
it actually happens a lot.
Yeah, but you said something about for these characters, none of the future has happened yet.
Yeah.
And we as readers all know everything that's going to happen in their lives. We know what happens in Empire. We know what happens in Return of the Jedi. And I've seen it in other things where writers will forget that the characters don't know this stuff.
That's sort of the biggest trick here, because I'm writing, and like you said, everybody knows the entire timeline, and I do, and readers do, but the characters don't, and so it's a real. I mean, I have to tread very very carefully that it's like a satisfying read to you, like that you buy it, even though you understand Luke and Leia don't know their relatives. They're gonna have to act a certain way, but I, the writer, can't push that to the point where it gets gross, because you all know too. So there's like it's this really. I mean, I find it great. Like I really enjoy it's like this tightrope walking, where I have to give all these characters like real, believable, stories and moments and interactions. But I have to be like aware of like this world, or like this timeline that the characters don't. It's cool. I like it a lot, and and that certainly doesn't mean that I'm not treating everything that happened in Empire and Return as this isn't like an alternate world or like a different timeline or anything. But you just really have to just sort of I feel like once you get it that the characters don't, even though all this stuff has happened and will happen, the characters just haven't lived it yet. But I guess that's the thing where everybody thinks that I'm ignoring stuff.
Yeah,
I see it. Yeah, I'm definitely not.
But I've seen like how easy it is to forget that characters in the story don't know. I mean, after Return of the Jedi, and I haven't read a lot of the novels, but somehow all of a sudden everybody in the galaxy knew that Luke and Leia were Vader's kids. And I thought, hey, what did they run out and say, hey, Hitler was my dad? I mean, it was, but it's one of those things that it just slipped by everybody because we all saw it in the movie. We all knew. So, of course, everybody knows. And when you're dealing with really dense continuity, it's especially well-known continuity. It's hard to remember what you don't know or what you're not supposed to know yet.
I remember, speaking of the continuity, there was in one of the first scripts I wrote, I needed to find it wasn't a big deal. I had a scene where I needed an empty planet, like an uninhabited planet. And I have all my reference books, which I bought for the job. I have my like map of the galaxy. And so I'm like looking for like corners of the map, and literally everything has been used, whether it's in like a role-playing game or a video game. Like I'm on Wikipedia, I'm like spending hours basically, and that's That was like actually I think of like my first real personal experience with like the depth of continuity in this world, where I literally could not find a dot on this map of the galaxy that didn't have a story written about it.
But part of that is a function of whoever wrote the book, because they're only putting in the dots that something has been written about.
Right, that's true. But I wouldn't really know how to find it.
Yeah.
But I think we worked it out.
Yeah. And I think it was Leland Chee who said, you know, if you need a planet that doesn't exist, just make one up. Because, yeah, it really is a case. If you've never heard of this planet, it's because there's nothing to hear about it. You know, there's nobody who lives there. Nothing's been done. Do you want to take the questions?
Sure. Yeah. If anybody has questions, I think you.
Yeah, I was wondering. You were talking about if you can't find an empty planet, make one. Are you planning on adding characters? Are you going to stick with like the core existing?
There's definitely a core cast, and it's large, and it's everybody you know. You know, it's everybody you would expect after thinking about a new Hope. There's a secondary cast of pilots, which I think appear like two or three issues in. It's definitely a secondary cast. I mean, a few of them will get a lot of screen time. But the main cast is Luke and Leia, Han and Chewie, R2 and 3PO. I have Mon Mothma in there. Vader, the Emperor. There's an Imperial officer who's new. He's sort of the thorn in Vader's side. Wedge. I really wanted to put Wedge in there. I'm a real big fan of those X-Wing novels. I really like them. So you definitely see that. I have Wedge in there, and there's a lot of like X-Wing action in this book.
In regard to the continuity, a while back Dark Horse put out the classic Star Wars comics that kind of traveled some of this territory with like leaving Yavin after the Death Star blew up. Is that being addressed or considered or retold or just
You mean the
pushed
Marvels?
aside?
I think you were talking
classic
about
Star Wars?
the comic strips that were reformatted as
Sure.
comics.
Right.
Yeah. It was the stuff that Archie Goodwin did in the comic strips.
I mean, I made a point to not read any of that. I feel like that's a real. You can really get in trouble, like even if you don't mean to sort of borrow from any of that stuff, it can happen subconsciously. So I made a real effort. Like once I had this job, I didn't read anything. I wanted to like have like as fresh a perspective, as possible. I really wanted to go back and read Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which is like an old favorite book of mine, which also kind of deals with in this like territory, but I wouldn't even let myself read that. But I remember reading some of that stuff. Like I mean, I had like a vague, sort of impression of that in the old Marvel comics. It's cool. Who else? You gotta help me out because it's a small room.
I know it's not entirely on topic, but a procedural question. When you are developing a story, do you do you have like a series of scenes that you think are awesome and you want to put them in there, and then you write from scene to scene, or do you like start at the beginning and at the end?
I usually sort of like start really broad and narrow it down. I'm sure this is a common way to do it, but I sort of figure out what the point of it all is. Like what point am I trying to like communicate? And once I figure that out, then I sort of what has to happen broadly, for this point to be effectively told. And so then I just keep like sort of getting narrower and narrower down until I'm down to like plotting things out page by page. But I always start like on like almost on like a conceptual level, really broad. That's usually how I work, and I do it all in notebooks by hand. It's sort of like my brain can just. I like to be able to see everything on a single page. I don't like to have to scroll. So like a handwritten notebook works really well. So I have these really like OCD looking notebooks where I have to try to get all my notes for any one thing on a single page, so I can sort of like mentally wrap my mind around it.
I've got maybe 30, 20-page notebooks with 300 pages, but
Yeah.
20 of them written in it.
Well, I have a lot of these notebooks for the last 10 years. This is how I've been working, and I felt like I took them for granted until I felt like I had lost one at San Diego one year, and pretty much had a panic attack. So I feel like I want to carry it around in like a briefcase, handcuffed to my wrist.
Do you ever go back and read one and think, oh yeah, like something you left out?
No, actually, I don't know if I've ever gone back and read them. They're very much like, it's like scratch paper. Like I sort of, once I move on, it's like, irrelevant. Every so often I'll like scan them and put them online if I feel like there's something interesting to like show, like process-wise. But that's pretty rare, because like there's a lot of things in them that were like, if I get a phone call when I'm working on it, like I'll have it written down, like whatever info I got from the phone call. Oh yeah, my doctor's appointment, and I'll like write all that down. So it's kind of like a mess in that respect. Maybe if I ever become super rich and famous, I can like sell them or something. That'll never happen.
How much humor can we expect in this series?
That's really not my strong suit. I wish it was. I wish I was looking better about it. I don't think there's anything really in there. I mean, if there was, there'd be like sarcastic comments, which aren't really humor in like the general sense.
But there are scenes with a lightness to them that's very reminiscent of A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, where the sort of character banter and things like that they're not exactly funny, but not every character is not like, oh, what was me?
No, I really wanted to make sure I didn't like make it dark or anything like that. It's just not what I think Star Wars is, and I also don't think I'd be doing my job if I sort of went that route. I mean, a lot of my other comics are pretty depressing and very like I write a lot of tragedies and stuff, and I just really wanted, that was what I knew at the beginning of this, is that I couldn't go down that road. Yeah, but there's no like slapstick humor. There's no like Jar Jar Binks style, like tripping over your feet type of stuff.
Well, I was just thinking, you said you're a fan of the X-Wing novels. I know in the X-Wing novels, humor shows up every now and then.
Yeah, it'd be like more along those kinds of lines, I think. Yes.
So would you liken this series to the Clone Wars, where the characters all have somewhere that they need to get for the next film, and you're taking them in that direction? Or are you trying to really make it more of a day-to-day thing rather than them having that final goal?
I'm not even thinking about a goal. I mean, I know where they end up eventually at the beginning of Empire. I'm just not even thinking about that. It's very much a day-to-day thing. Like, I don't know how long this series is gonna run or anything like that, so I'm in no rush to get anywhere. The first part of this pretty much deals with, I don't think I'm giving anything away that's not in the first issue, but they're basically searching for a new planet for a base, like seriously, like on their last legs, kind of the Enterprise, and they're kind of desperate to find a place to put down the roots. So that's what's driving the first part of the series. So, and I don't know if, for all I know, this has been written about, but I don't think there's anything that says that Hoth was their like immediate next base.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there's like, tell me if I'm wrong, because
I was just going to say, so what you're saying is it could be like Hoth minus 1 week, Leia shots for a code. Just saying.
Yeah, Hoth I think is a long ways off. I really love, that's probably my all-time favorite part of like any Star Wars films, is the Hoth scenes. And I remember with my friends, we used to play it in the snow. I lived in Vermont. We used to get a lot of snow. So it was all very, very cool. Yes?
If we're considering that there's just the one film, and we all know what the characters sound like, you know, we hear their voices in our head. And did you find that difficult to try to translate that into the story of the comic, like getting the tone of the dialogue correct between the big three or any of the other?
I felt that actually helped me. When I was writing it, I would read the dialogue back to myself, which I always do. It actually helped hearing their voices. Like I compare it to other things I write, like the X-Men. Like a lot of those characters, I don't like have never have voices. I certainly don't know them as well as I know the Star Wars cast. So that can be harder to kind of like get the right tone. But I feel like just having such like a, I mean, I don't know how many times I've watched those films, but I feel like I can hear all their voices in my head now, just to make sure everybody else is good. So I felt like that really helped me to figure out just like how sarcastic Anne would say this, if I could just like play it in my head. And that's what's really fun writing Han, because he's still like, the language is still kind of a dick, at the end of that first film. Like, he hasn't really gotten nice yet, even close to it. So it's a lot of fun writing that on. How about back to you first? Yeah.
When you started your now storytelling Star Wars, was there something that you went back to the New Hope and said, I didn't realize it was there, and as you're looking as a storyteller?
I don't think I did. I know that film pretty well. I did go back and watch a lot of the films, but no, I don't think I did. I mean, I think I went back to it, or I at least thought about it for like factual things. I know there's one thing I missed about like rank markings on X-wing fighters, like painted stripes or something, which I had no idea about.
Believe me, I didn't. It took me a while to figure that out too. It's so kind of obscure.
Right.
When you watch the film, there's red 3, red 5, but it never occurs to you to count the stripes on their wings as they're zooming all around. So then when you finally look at the still pictures, you realize, oh, they actually have that number on their wings.
It's cool. But I didn't. I felt like I've long since internalized that film. That I didn't have to do, for better or for worse. Yep.
Just kind of a general process question. Where do you fall on that spectrum between like really on panel detail, like putting a lot of detail and micromanaging everything, versus giving the artist room to do their thing?
It always depends on the artist. I always like to know who the artist is before I start writing anything, if that's possible. It isn't always. The guy we have now, Carlos, like I've met him before, but I don't really know him. I know his work, and he's like draws with a very high level of detail. And once I knew he was the artist, I could give him like I could play up to that strength of his. I generally try to keep descriptions light. Like I try to give them everything I feel like they need to know. But I mean, I used to draw a lot. I was like trained as an artist, so I definitely know what it's like when someone's like guiding your hand, and cramping your style. So I never want to do that if I can. I also try to do as much research for the artist as I can. Like my scripts will have a lot of links in it to various things on the web, because I feel like feel like it's kind of like a dick move to make the artist spend all their time looking up stuff online if I can help it. But usually I try to write fairly lean scripts. And just, and I'm always around. I always tell them, just like, if there's anything you need, if you need any info, just let me know. So that happens too. Yes?
A question kind of related to that, which is when you're writing a script, is a scene super visual in your mind, or is there a level where you're like, well, I'm not sure exactly how this will work, but I'm sure the artist will make it look good?
Yeah, the times where I'm like, oh, I'll just let the artist figure it out are pretty rare. I always try to, I do see things very, very visually. And I remember when I first switched over from being an artist-writer to just being a writer, I would get really, really upset when the art would come back and not look like it did in my head, and which is very, very unfair, But it was like a gut reaction, and I've since kind of like trained that out of me, where sort of like the art is their job. I'm not gonna get upset if they don't read my mind. But I generally do see everything in my head. And I feel like I really know it's working well when the art comes back and it's like a pretty good match. I feel like it's like a good like energy back and forth. You read the scripts, right?
I know, but I can't read your mind either.
It's like that in comics all the way down the line, because the artist then draws stuff, and then it goes to the colorist, and the colorist can't read the artist's mind. The artist has had like a whole day looking at that page, thinking of what color everything's going to be, and it goes to the colorist, and they do their job on it. And I've had very few pencilers who, at one time or another, haven't complained about their colorist. And it's not because the colorist did a bad job. It's because it doesn't look like what they would have done themselves if they had colored it. I think it's the nature of that sort of assembly line process that everyone is expecting something different than what they get.
Right. How much of your day do you spend dealing with that kind of stuff?
Not a lot, but there are some people where I have that conversation over and over because they can't get that the other person can't read their mind.
Right. I think that kind of
having to sort of fit between what people might consider the main narrative. Do you feel that the scale or scope of your story is limited in any way?
No. Really, the way I'm approaching it is I can't break anything. That's really, it's my number one rule. Like, I can't write anything that's going to somehow invalidate what we already know is happening. But I mean, that's kind of like my biggest and possibly only rule. So I feel like as long as I don't do that, I can do anything. So I never felt like I was like like tethered to like a timeline or anything like that. I feel like that's more Randy's job to tell me if I ever do go too far. Otherwise, I'm just going to go for it and pretend like the world is my oyster. I don't think you've actually corrected anything. I mean, there's a lot of like small detail on it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it will.
Like it's been okay.
Yeah, except for blowing up the Millennium Falcon.
Well, that was in the pitch. That
I know.
I actually, like, even as I was writing that, I felt like that was like some sort of like subconscious test of mine to like see how much I could get away with, because I wouldn't even know how to fix that. So I feel like that couldn't have worked anyway. So. Yes. Who's next? Yep.
Brian, for a while you focused
I mean, part of it is, I mean, I'm doing a lot of work for hire now, and I mean, there's several things here. I mean, part of it is I've hardly ever done any of it. Like, I've been writing comics for like 15 years, and I sort of had gotten to this point where a lot of like my big creator-owned books were like wrapping up, and I was like, well, if there's a time, you know, let me just like give this a shot, because I've never really done it before, not in any meaningful way. And like everybody else, all my friends and peers, you know, sort of do both. And then like maybe I figured, you know, it's gonna help make me a better writer, like a more well-rounded writer. So I took on Conan, I took on the X-Men. So part of it with Star Wars was that, just so it was like really stretching my wings. And also, I mean, it's always very, very flattering to be asked. And this is like an awesome job. I mean, I feel like if I was ever going to write any Star Wars thing ever, this is pretty great. You know, I definitely didn't want to pass it up. And then kind of once I got into it, like that's when like, you know, how much fun it is kind of became obvious. I mean, it was a little scary at first. Same thing with Conan too. Like, I'm writing this pitch and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Are they going to hate this? Like, I don't know enough about any of this stuff to be able to write it. But it all worked out. So, I mean, I still sort of consider myself, you know, like a creator-owned guy. That's kind of the identity I've built up over all this time. But for now, I mean, I'm really having a lot of fun with all these books. We'll see where it goes. What else?
One of the, I guess, complaints I have about the main cast and how they're handled in the expanded universe stuff is that I often feel like they're very insular and they lack a certain dimension because they don't have friendships outside of their core group. Is that something that you're planning on working with?
Yes. Yeah. And it goes back to that secondary cast of pilots I was talking about. I mean, I feel like in this case, at least at the beginning, it is a very insular group. Because they've been like whittled down to it. Like, I keep always thinking of that scene at the end of A New Hope, when the ships are flying away from the Death Star, and there's like 3 of them. Like, that's crazy, you know. Think about like how few, you know, are walking away from that, flying away from that. So I mean, they're definitely sort of a tight group in that sense. But I mean, I wouldn't call that insular. It's certainly not by choice. And there are some you know, I'm not giving anything away, but I mean, like Luke does connect with someone who's not part of that core group. So that's the instance I feel like I can say now. But yeah, I feel like it's that, like I see that in a lot of things, like you know, like if it, you know, in like any sort of book series or TV show, they always like end up hooking up with the person who's right there, you know, like in that group already. I know what you're talking about. I definitely don't want that in this book. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, any new Force type people, like the witches or no?
No, keep it at old school. It's interesting because like talking about the Force, I mean Luke. I mean, if you think about at the end of that film, I mean he doesn't know anything about the Force. You know, he has a lightsaber and got a couple of like basic lessons. But I mean, he has to like also part of this is sort of like almost like a personal journey of his, to sort of like self teach himself to like learn about what all this is. You know. That's sort of like a minor storyline or like a secondary storyline. Like you know, having Ben appear to him and tell him to go to his alarm when he's off still. Yep.
I apologize if you covered this because I got here late.
It's okay.
Did you look at any of the other canon material before Empire Strikes Back and after A New Hope to get a feel for the era?
I didn't look at anything like after I got the job. I mean, there's stuff that I've already read, but I just didn't want to be like influenced by anything, whether it was like subconscious or not. So I just I just kind of thought about what these characters already know, at the end of that first film, and kind of like I'm really making sure like that's the scope of their knowledge. There's no way they can know about a lot of that extended universe stuff. I do really want to go back and read those Han Solo trilogy novels, which I read those to death as a kid, and in my mind I have a lot of affection for them. I wonder if those are sitting to read. Sorry if my voice is getting weird. It always does. Anything else? We got 10 minutes or so. Randy, do you have anything?
No, I was being asked you guys what. I don't know if that's a good idea.
I was wondering, are you going to introduce any new ship models or?
Yes. That's all I'm saying.
How about the obscurity?
Well, that's there's literally nothing more I can say about that without ruining it.
Do you have an idea of what is going to go for the Hawks? Do you have an idea of where it might end up?
Yeah, it's kind of all in, I outlined, broadly, sort of like a year of stories. Yeah, I do. I mean, obviously, that's all stuff that's coming up.
Right, so would you consider writing all the way up to Empire?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not even thinking about that yet. Because I feel like once, I don't even know. I'm taking it kind of like, smaller steps than that.
Well,
I mean, it has to get there eventually. I feel like it does.
I'm sorry.
do you have an idea of how long you want it to play this role?
Till he stops.
I mean, is it going to be ongoing or is it going to be?
It's an ongoing series.
It's not a
I get asked that a lot. I wasn't sure if it was like.
Yeah.
As much as anything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sad truism in comics that almost everything ends up on some kind of declining slope of sales. So you never know how long something's going to last. But I think with Brian writing it, and Carlos is doing a great job with the art, and Alex Ross covers, we got a really great chance to start way up here. So it's a much longer decline. And it's sad to think about it that way, but I've only been in the business 30 years, and it's always been that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you have to do everything possible to just get that first number as high as possible. Yeah.
Is it ongoing though in a continuing numbering, or is it ongoing in arc segments like you guys have been doing with Dark Times and everything else?
It's just I just was writing as like a monthly ongoing book, like not separate, like a continuous 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
yeah.
A traditional monthly comic. Yes.
How many issues is the first arc?
3. It's 3. Well, yeah. It's not such a hard break, arc to arc. Like it's feel more as like a chapters in a book. Yes.
This is kind of a selfish question. I sell comic books, and obviously most of us here are going to buy your book and read it because we're at Celebration. But if you could tell me a hook to tell to my customers to get them to buy it, what would you want me to? What hook would you want me to give to them?
I haven't even started thinking about that sort of I can't give you like the perfect one-liner, which I feel like is like an art, you know. And every comic needs that. I haven't figured it out for this one yet. I feel like this book has mass appeal because like it's everything everybody already knows, and it's not continuity heavy. I mean, I feel like my wife is always my like test subject because she knows nothing about comics and hardly anything about anything. She reads like Dickens novels, so I give her stuff, and I mean she's like read all the script and fully gets it with whatever base of knowledge she's like absorbed in pop culture. She hasn't even watched all the films, so like she gets it, and I feel like that's its biggest appeal. I mean, it has like these globally recognized faces telling a story that's, if you've at least seen the first film, you like understand.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please do, because this is more your realm of things.
What I would say.
This is Jennifer Heddle, everybody. She's our editor at Lucasfilm.
I would say if you love the movies, you're going to love this comic book. You don't need to have read any other Star Wars comics, any other Star Wars books. You know, that can be really intimidating to people who aren't familiar. They know there are a lot of Star Wars titles out there and they're not sure where to start. This is brand new. You don't need to know anything except that you saw Star Wars.
And the book is just called Star Wars.
The book is just called Star Wars, conveniently. And these are the characters that you know and love from the movie, and they're doing, I don't know how to put this, but like they're doing what you would expect them to be doing, and they're behaving the way you would expect them to be behaving, and all those things that we didn't see between the movies. So I think it's such, I was saying at Comic-Con about this, you know, if you're already someone who reads Star Wars comics, this is the book to give your friends who don't, so that you can get them hooked on the other stuff too. But this is just a really great entry point. And it's, speaking as someone who, you know, I came into this job, it's been a little less than a year. And when I came into this job, I had read, I'm going to guess, probably about the same amount of EU stuff that Brian has, like a few books, you know, some things here and there. Obviously, I've caught up a lot since then, but, you know, looking at this book with kind of those eyes and not thinking about all the stuff that I recently caught up on for work, it was just something that clicked immediately for me. Like, I got it. You know, again, I said at Comic-Con when I was reading the script for the first issue, I had printed it out and I was reading it at my desk, and I was literally doodling hearts in the margins because I loved what you were writing so much.
I want that copy.
The trade paperback.
Yeah, put all those that script.
Yeah, we'll put that as an So anyway, that's my spiel because I just.
What about those of us who have read everything? Can we like maybe recognize like little nods to stuff that happens and say, hey, I know this might end up or little references that you think.
Right. I don't know. I would say it's kind of early to say.
Yeah, it's a little early to say.
Yeah.
That's also not. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying I'm not going to put like nods and stuff like that in there, but it's also kind of not the point of it. You know. Yeah. I mean, like it also goes back to my thing. I just can't break anything rule. You know. I feel like sort of once I kind of make a point of like referencing that sort of deeper continuity, as I'm sort of possibly off the track of the point of the book.
No, just, like, as long as you don't contradict anything.
Well, no, right. That's on a basic level. That is not happening. So yeah,
that's why.
I mean, I think it'd be nice. I feel like as we go, it'd be nice to sort of. I mean, I can see how I would enjoy sort of hinting at stuff that everybody knows is going to happen. What is that?
Like stories can take place in between stuff that's already happened.
Yeah, I know there's some of those. I haven't read them intentionally, but I go on like the forums online and I see people people talking about stuff that's takes place in the same
But
realm.
I think what you're saying is maybe at some point you may reference stuff that happened in a different medium or something that we didn't see in the comic, and you're as like a nod to it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, like Jennifer said, I think it's a little early. Like I haven't really started thinking about that. But, I mean, it is definitely all part of the same world. So I think something like that would be totally out of order.
You were asking when it starts. It starts in January. So we announced it a little early, but I think that was partly because we really wanted to get a run at it. And
everything gets leaked anyway. I mean, not to call your company leakers, but it was really nice to get that out there without it being leaked. Because it seems like every other announcement I do, like everybody already knows about it. It's on the stupid gossip sites. So I really appreciated that we could tell it the way we could announce it the way we wanted to. Somebody over here raised their hand.
I was just wondering, out of the regular, obviously we know that they're going to be like a core group, and you've got plans for a few new characters, but out of the outliers of the existing, sort of cast of Star Wars, what are some of your favorite characters?
Well, I was saying that I just have this weird fascination with the guy Bosk. I have to figure out a way to use Bosk. Well, it's like Bosk in the ship that has such a cool name, the Houndstooth. I feel like I gotta figure that out. I forgot to say Boba Fett's in it too. He's like a sick guy. I think we'll get there eventually. Like I said, sort of like the goal now is to really sort of write this story with this core cast. I feel like as the book as the book goes on, it's naturally going to sort of grow and expand and include others. But I haven't gotten to that point yet.
I was just asking more of a personal, you as a person, not as an author of this series.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Mine would be Thrawn. I think Thrawn is awesome.
Yeah.
But
Bosk.
You nailed it.
I know there's not a lot there with the Bosk, but I don't know. I feel like my next computer I buy, I'm going to name the hard drive the Houndstooth.
it's true. In the second issue, he was already trying to figure a way Bosk could be in it.
Well, that might be the great thing about it is there's so much potential. There's so little information. You can really just kind of go nuts.
Yep.
How far out do you kind of outline your plan? Years worth of stories that you might do, or you just kind of take it beat by beat?
Yeah. Well, there's something to be said for not over planning. I feel like you want to leave yourself room, because as you write, that's when all the ideas really start occurring to you. So you want to leave enough flexibility in your plan to adapt and work with ideas that come to you as you go. I feel like I sort of pitched an idea that was a year long, like a year of comics, and that's kind of what we're working with right now. We'll take it as it goes. Was that you raising your hand?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was scratching my ass.
All right, we got a couple minutes, so last.
Anybody still worried about just the fact that we're going to destroy continuity?
Not getting from Chewie. I don't care what else happens.
I don't know. You could ruin Bosk for me.
What?
I'm kidding.
Second issue, just subvert everyone's expectations and kill everyone off.
And so issue 3 is they were all clones.
Yep.
Comes up with a good point. As long as you don't kill Chewie, how do you build that suspense, knowing that we know none of these main characters are going to die? But how do you kind of build that suspense?
I don't even know. I mean, I sort of. But that's sort of something you face writing anything. that's any comic, any sort of adaptation. I feel like that's it comes down to like the writer telling a good story, where even if you know that everything's gonna be okay at the end, you can either lose yourself in the story and sort of forget that in the moment, or it doesn't even matter. It's just like an awesome story anyway. I don't have a good answer other than that. That's my job to make it work.
I think in some ways, like bad TV shows have raised the expectation that killing a character is the only dramatic solution to anything, and that if no one's going to die, you have no story. Because there have been lots of great things where characters never die, or what you're interested in them is, why you're concerned is not necessarily because that character's life is in jeopardy, but because they're in some kind of emotional conflict with other characters. And I'm always talking to, writers who come into Star Wars, or fans who are wanting us to tell stories that connect the dots to something. And I always say that's not a story. The story is on the fact that on the way there, Luke's desire to do this conflicts with Han's desire to do this, which both run into trouble because Vader's desire is to kill them both, or whatever. And it's those emotions sort of amped up to a Shakespearean level that makes any of that interesting. It's not always the threat of physical death or harm that makes the story, that makes you care about the story. I think there's lots of room to do things without worrying about. I mean, how many great stories were there before Chewie died? You didn't expect him to die. Believe me, I was in that meeting where it was decided Chewie was going to die. It was my idea. Yeah.
Everybody tweet that.
Well, no, it was a meeting when Del Rey first got the license, and they felt like they needed to kill a character to really put the stamp on the fact that this wasn't going to be business as usual, and I didn't think they were right, but they wanted to kill Luke, and of course we got word from on high that no, you're not going to kill Luke. And so they're all debating which character they should kill, and I said, well, everybody cries when Old Yeller dies. So if you kill the family dog, it has much more emotional impact. I mean, a greater emotional impact than this. Chewie is, he's part of the team, but he doesn't really do anything. I mean, he's not having conversations with people. We're not getting inside Chewie's head in the same way that we do with the other characters. So, but his death can still have a gigantic emotional impact beyond sort of his real importance in the story. But
I was talking to someone this morning, and I was trying to make this point that I feel like there's this like sort of purity to the Star Wars world that just does not exist in like the comic book world. Like, I mean, all these X-Men comics I write, like everybody in this comics has died like five times, or been like torn apart or mutilated, or had all this, like, they keep having to like up the ante every time. And the fact that the Star Wars characters and the overall story has been so, I feel like it's been very carefully taken care of over the years, that it's not like this like timeline of like chaos and death and gross out scenes and everything like that. I can really appreciate that about it. Like all those comic book universes are like a total mess. Trying to like write that, it's like really So, yeah, I think that's kind of like is related to Randy's point about how you don't have to turn the dial up to 11 on the mile to tell a great story. So that is an hour. So if there's anything, I can also.
Wow.
If anybody brought anything for me to sign too, I can sign.
An hour and 17 seconds.